This is an introduction to music theory. I hate that word, and because I think it's a scary word for so many people. It's like brain surgery theory. Um, so from here on, what we're really going to talk about is how music works, at least for us, and what we're used to hearing. And that's the most important thing, is what we're used to hearing. And if we want to create, um, what are kind of the rules or what are sort of the conventions that we have all the time? So we're going to take a stab at that. I'm doing this because I was having a conversation last night. We were out hearing some music, great jazz trio, some friends, great piano player, and another person said, "Boy, I sure wish that I could play jazz piano." And they know how to read, and they know the piano, and they're just scared to death because it sounds like rocket science or brain surgery to them. And I just so that I'm about dispelling fear about all this. Okay, so if you can learn to talk, you can learn to play music and create music and to improvise music. So where do you start? You start with the scale. Okay, and we're just going to start in a single key. When I'm talking about something being in a key, what that means is that I've got a series of notes that occur within that key. So key is C. C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. That's the key of C. Period. That's the key of C. So all of these notes, and the term for that is diatonic. Anything that happens within a key, if I'm playing in the key of C, everything that is in that key of C, all these notes that I just played are diatonic to the key of C. So anything that's made up of any of those notes is also diatonic to the key of C. It just means it's within the key. It means we haven't slipped outside of it. So again, C, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. Now, not to get confusing early on, what works for the key of C also works for the key of G and D and whatever else, if you're talking about being in those keys. So to make things easier, we just start numbering the notes in the scale, and I'm playing a major scale. There's minor scales too. We'll just focus on the major scale right now. What that means is that I can number the scales, the notes in the scale, and then I can, use the same ideas in a different key as long as I know how to number the notes in that scale. So in the key of C, C is 1, D is my 2, or my second, E is my third, because it's the third note in the scale, F is my fourth, because it's the fourth note in the scale, etc., etc. G is fifth, A is sixth, B is my major seventh, and then my octave. Okay? There you go. Numbering the notes in the scale. And that is, when I'm talking about music theory, that's where all those notes come from. And that's where all those numbers that you see when they're talking about weird looking chords that look like they have a socket set number behind them or something, that's where it comes from. It's just numbering the notes in the scale. So now, when you're learning music theory, the first thing you learn is, well, how to make the scale. You want to be able to say the scale. You want to be able to play it on your instrument. Okay, so make sure you can do that. So just practice that. Second thing is, we've learned about a scale, the major scale. So let's talk about chords. Because the chord is made up of notes from the scale. Your basic major chord is made up of 3 notes. That's called the major triad, and it's always the root, the third, and the fifth note from your scale. So from the key of C, C is my 1, so there's my root. E is my third, so there's my E note. It's my 1, my 3, and my 5. My first, my third, and my fifth. C, E, and G. Okay? That's a major chord. Now I can use all 10 fingers on a piano and play a C major chord, and all I'm doing is repeating those 3 notes unless I've been told to do something different by adding a number on. Okay? So chord theory, I take the notes of the C scale and I see a thing that says C6. Well, what they want me to do is they want me to play a C major chord, but they want me to add the 6th note from the scale also. The 6th note from the scale is A. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's an A note. So a C6 is simply a C with an A note in it. Okay? Now, I don't necessarily think of that I don't go through that cognitive process every time I have to play a C6 chord. The other thing I've done is I've memorized how to make a C6 chord without having to process where the A note is. I can tell you, but I don't have to think about it. I just put my hands down for that shape. So memorizing the shapes is a different thing. But this is why it's called a C6. And there's a bunch of different ways to make these chords, but they all have one thing in common. It has to be essentially a C chord with an A note in it. The next thing then is sometimes you'll see people talk about 1s and 4s and 5s in their chords. The numbers come from the same spot. In the key of C, C is my root, it's my 1. It is also then the C chord in the key of C is my 1 chord. F is my 4th note in the C scale. So F is my 4, and F chord is my 4 chord. G is my 5th note, and so therefore a G chord would be my 5 chord. So 1, 4, 5. How many songs are made from that? A million? I don't know. So that's our basic, that's our start, okay, you guys? I don't want you to be afraid of this. It can be done, you can do it. All you have to do is just begin to learn where to put your fingers on the instrument, be able to play your scale, and then start numbering the scale and think about what notes you're playing, okay, when you do that, and then correspond the chords to them. In the next one, I'll talk more about chords, okay? Good luck. Learn your scale.